Hi friends, my name is Marlon Pittman. This is MV Pittman Cross Sim Racing, and I'm here to tell you about some advice that I got. A friend of mine, he's cool, his name is Ray. He's like, you need thumbnails on your videos. He's not wrong. My workflow is pretty much make a video by pressing record, then uploading it by pressing upload. And, there's a reason for that, but, I'm not going to call it laziness. What I'll call it is efficiency. I just don't have that kind of time. But I'd like to have that kind of time if I made enough money doing this stuff. So, here's the deal. Subscribe to my videos. I'll figure out a way to make money. Then I can provide you with an opportunity to give me more money. That sounds good? If not, you don't have to do that. I might keep making videos anyway. Today, I'd like to present you with a partially built Pokornyi GTB Pro button box on a rim. And the main reason I'm doing this is I get a question frequently about USB pass-through. A lot of people like USB pass-through so you don't have to dangle a cable from your wheel all the way to your computer, either straight to your computer or by way of a powered hub or some other method. USB pass-through lets you take a cable that would come out of your wheel and run to your computer and instead run it through your spacer stack, and you have a quick release that actually has a connection on the base side that goes to your computer. So you're not really calling it wireless or anything, although a lot of people like to use that because when you do that, all you have to do, depending on your quick release, is connect it to your wheelbase. And then what happens is you have that cable on the base side that runs to your computer. So, that's always cool. And the quick release system that I am currently using is called QRX. It's from a company called Cube Controls that makes wheels and other sim racing accessories. I'm not sponsored by them. I just like it because it was on discount. Cube Controls and Micro Center ended their relationship, and so a bunch of them became available on discount, and I bought a bunch. Then I went to another store and bought a bunch. Then I called my friends and got a bunch of those. So I have enough. And that's great. I'm a QR2 fan. I am an NRG fan, but the pass-through solution offered by Cube Controls is retail. There's hardly any DIY that's necessary. None if you use a Cube Controls wheel. So I think, the solution was really the right one for me at the right time. All that said, let's take a look at this wheel. It is a button box, meaning it goes on top of a rim and you can use any rim you want. I like these open top rims just because if you have a DDU that's separate from your wheel, you get more visibility to that. It is a DIY wheel, although Pokornyi has an option where you can order the entire wheel built. The parts that are missing right here are the buttons, the knobs, and the screen. So getting a screen button box is a really cool option, and a lot of this can be 3D printed. This individual solution is actually mostly aluminum. I don't think there's any 3D printed parts on here other than the light guides that would be on the inside and the little bits that would hold the screen in place. And actually, I think the screen is actually held in place to an aluminum panel that's on the inside. You could even 3D print the buttons if you want, or you can order molded, plastic injection molded buttons that are either completely clear or frosted. You can order those from Pokornyi, or they're actually generic 12 millimeter buttons. On the back, after you add a rim, you also have a shifter plate. So the shifter plate is optional. If you have one of those rally wheels that you don't want shifters on because they would get in the way as you're spinning it, you can not use the shifter plate. But if you do want shifters and clutches, you would wire them into this section at the top, and then you would add shifters and clutches here at the bottom, and then you can use 3D printed housings for those clutches. You could print the paddles, so it's an easy way to keep the cost down on this. But if you want to go all out, you can buy aluminum housed shifters and aluminum housed clutches with carbon fiber paddles, and that will really increase the quality level and probably the feel of your rim. It's versatile, so you could put a round rim on here, you can put a D-shaped rim, you can put this open top kind of rim, but I like the button box. I am a big fan. Also, you can use any QR stack or spacer that you want here. But back to that question about how you get USB pass-through working on here. As you can see here, there's a hole, and that's where the cable would normally come out, and you'd run it from here to your computer. And as I mentioned before, USB pass-through goes through the spacer stack into a quick release that has a PCB that connects to the base side, and the base side is connected to your wheelbase. The QRX wheel side that you see connected here, I told you I had enough. It looks like this. So there's a 4-pin JST connector that you can run a wire to this, and then on your base side connector you saw on the stack where there's a magnet. I can pull it off for you one more time. So this magnetic QCon connector connects to your wheelbase. This connects, and is pretty solid, connects to your base side. And of course, if you're using Fanatec, you have to stack that on top. And then the connection between this and your base side is what gets that USB and gives you the wireless solution. So what I'm going to do is take this entire stack apart and show you how a USB cable would work. And one thing that is important to know about this is that there's no hole in the wheel and there's no hole in the rim. So in order to pass a cable straight through, what I'm doing is different than what you have to do on many wheels. Most of the wheels that don't have a hole, you just get a little creative and put a hole in there. You might use a drill or a step bit to make a hole. Probably about 10 millimeters is enough to pass through a connector that goes from your wheel to the connector on your wheel side quick release. In this case, I'm going to run a wire outside of this hole and then pass it through a spacer that goes into the quick release. And I'll show you that just as I take it apart. The spacer, I 3D printed it, I designed it myself. If it's one of those things where you're like, man, I wish I could get that 3D spacer, that might be an opportunity for you to help support the channel, and we'll figure that out if it's gonna be one of those Patreon things, or you get it STL for free, or I give you a link where you can just buy a pre-printed model from my Etsy store or something like that. But stay tuned for that part as well. So this button box connects through the button box with 3 screws. So let me get my handy dandy powered screwdriver so you don't have to wait or watch me fast forward a video. As I mentioned, my workflow is press record, then press upload. So I'm not trying to edit this video at all. And these screws are really long, but you can build your spacer stack any way that you want. So the length of these is pretty extreme. If you haven't 3D printed one of these tools so you can, find random screws and find out how long they are, you should do that. These are about 55 millimeters. So don't go to the store and buy a bunch of 55 millimeter screws. Probably what you should do is buy a pack that has a few screws of different lengths, so that when you decide how you're gonna mount your spacer, you aren't struggling because you have a whole bunch of the wrong size. If your screws are too long, they won't work. If your screws are too short, they won't work. So you need a whole bunch of different things. This is the button box by itself. Screws pass through the back and they go into your spacer stack. The wheel rim looks like this. And as you can see, neither my button box nor my rim have a hole in the middle. And so normally you would just drill a small hole here, drill a small hole here, then pass that into your spacer stack, which in my case does have a hole, but your quick release has that connector. And to get all the way from your button box where the signal for USB is coming through all the way to your spacer, which has that connector, or I said spacer, I meant all the way to your quick release, which has a connector, and that connector is going to vary based on whatever system you're using for USB pass-through. Mine is a JST 2.54 XH connector. So, don't go and buy a bunch of those because a lot of them are USB-C these days. A lot of wheels have USB-C either internally or on the back, and a lot of the quick release PCBs have a USB-C connection as well. On mine, I had to manufacture them, and it wasn't difficult. Ray at Grace Dynamics has a really good tutorial on how to manufacture your own pass-through cables. So I won't link it because I only do one take, but if you ask, I'll direct them. Maybe I'll tag them in the comments. This is my spacer stack, and there's a spacer here so that there's enough space between the button box and the spacer stack and the shifter plate so that you can actually mount shifters on this side and then put a screw into your shifter from this side. So that's where this spacer stack starts here. And then you have your shifter plate. I'll take this whole thing apart after I describe it, and then you'll be able to see what else is in here. But you can see that there are 3 screws here. They are in opposite locations from the 3 screws on my long screws that come through the button box. So all that's holding this together are screws that go from this blue section to this spacer. There's a screw that goes all the way through to these, and then the quick release is held on by these 3 screws. And that's the entire spacer stack. So again, I'll get my powered screwdriver. Also not sponsored by Fantic, but maybe we'll have to change that. I'd be happy to use some screwdriver exclusively in exchange for money or free tools. So if you're a tool maker and you want to get some exposure, hit me up. I'm Marland at mvpittman.com. All right, so the screws that I used for this are about this long. Again, you don't want to just buy, whatever I tell you. Your spacer stack may end up completely different. You might want more space between your button box and your shifter plate. You might not use a shifter plate. You might not use a shifter plate at all. So, there's a lot of different ways to configure that. After the shifter plate, which I took off, and without the spacer, and without these screws holding it together that couldn't quite get on camera, set those down, because I'm not going to reassemble this in the video. This right here allows you to pass a cable from, sorry about that, the hole that you do have, because you don't have this hole. So there's a wire that goes in here and normally connects to your computer. Not flipping you off. This cable, instead of using that, I run it out and then into this, and I put a little kink in there so that someone doesn't yank your cable and destroy your PCB here or destroy your PCB here. Bad time if that happens. So essentially you can put this forward or backwards, doesn't matter, but probably what you want to do is put this in proximity to that. So you can see here, you would just run a cable from the middle, which goes to the spacer stack, and then eventually your quick release through here, and then into the hole that is in your button box, and that hole is going to be there anyway. Another option is to simply not use something like this if you don't have a hole. If you have a hole in your rim and you don't want to put a hole in here, you could 3D print this and then modify the STL so that there is a hole wherever you want it, and you can fill in this hole. So there's options. Again, 3D printing and DIY give you a lot of those. So as I was mentioning, if you need this, you can design your own. But if you want one printed, or if you want the STL, we'll figure out how to make that an option for folks. If I can figure out how to earn some money from that, and you can support the channel. This is where the spacer and QR offer an opportunity to meet your JST connector on your quick release. So that really is the entire stack. I'm not going to bother disconnecting these, but one thing I will tell you is this is a 30 millimeter spacer, and there's a 13-ish millimeter spacer on the wheel, and the spacer for the pass-through wire is about 8 millimeters. So I've got kind of equivalent to about a 50 millimeter spacer. So if you're using a 50 millimeter spacer on your other wheels, this kind of helps you get those all the same distance from your wheel stack. And this video I think is getting long enough, but you know, you assemble your stuff, you squeeze that, put on your wheelbase, your screen lights up because you have USB pass-through, and you are a happy camper because you don't have any wheels with wires, because you know you're going to take every wheel, I promise you. Once you get wireless USB, it's really nice to just grab a wheel, slam it on, and then get started. So that's it for wireless pass-through on the Pokornyi Engineering GTB Pro. If you don't want to drill a hole, there are options. And if you need help with that, you can contact me at this YouTube channel, or head over to the Grays Dynamics forum. They use Discord, so the Grays Dynamics Discord. I'm there all the time. So if you have questions, just hit me up. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.